The information shared in this podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered as professional legal advice or a substitute for seeking professional legal advice. I'm Michele Locke, and this is Lovelustraw. You've heard me on Love Lust Fridays, and you've heard me on my own show, Lovelustlaw. And now today, Jake and I wanted to get real. Real with all the things that have been going on kind of behind the scenes since the launch of Lovelustlaw. In addition to probably an update on what's been going on in my life and how that's affected me. I've made a transition from being a full-time lawyer, full-time mom, to now podcasting. And this has been something completely out of my comfort zone to do, but it's become something that I totally enjoy. I've learned so much and I've grown so much, and I hope people are listening and learning and growing as well. One of my Instagram posts was, can you love more than one person at a time? Like, I guess in my case, another man at a time. I'm like, well, yeah, because you really need 3 men to make a perfect one, right? So you need like the earner, the hard worker, the one that's going to pound the pavement just as hard as you are. You're going to need someone for their bedroom skills.
I think both of those could serve the same purpose, but let's move forward.
Nah, those two are usually mutually exclusive.
Well, no, the terminology you use, you need someone to pound the pavement. I think those both could apply in some way. If a man's going to pound the pavement, it may not matter if he's hitting the streets or hitting the sheets. You know what I'm saying?
That's why I love you. So that may be an accurate assessment of needs and desires. But really, so you need someone that earns. You need someone that satisfies other needs. And then you have someone that's like your best friend that you can talk to, have a conversation with, makes you laugh, that you want to go do things with. Because quite often it's almost impossible to find all 3 in one person.
I can tell you the conflict with some of that ideology is that you want someone to make you laugh. You want someone to make you cry in a good way.
Not in curled up in the corner of a room because I'm getting berated.
No, unless your love language is words of defamation, then that's a different story.
Well, apparently that was mine for a while.
I gotta say, though, in reversing the script, there are a lot of people, primarily men, who pay a lot of money to be humiliated, to be degraded. There's dominatrixes, right, that have cottage industries based on, and it's mostly high-powered men, executives.
I need to change professions.
You would be the dom to end all doms. I mean, if I did a movie, it would be called Dom-Com for you, because there'd be comedy, there'd be dominance, there'd be courtroom antics, there'd be robes, there'd be disrobes.
Can you imagine? I don't even know that I can imagine that. Something that people have talked about recently, because there's, I think, not a rash of women, but a fair amount of women that are around my age that get divorced. Mm-hmm. And it's usually after some of the kids have grown up. You've got maybe one in college or one about to graduate, but it's right around that time where you've got kids really kind of leaving home, that the wives are looking at their husbands and going, well, now I'm going to be stuck with this. And people think, oh, well, they're just in a midlife crisis, and so they're leaving. And it's, I hate to break it to people, it is not a midlife crisis. It is, they've put up with the shit for almost 2 decades, and they're tired of it, and they don't want to swallow a shit sandwich any longer. Yeah. And so they've checked out 2 or 3 years and are just biding their time, because when a woman actually goes through with it, they're done. Like, they're not kind of done. They're not maybe done. They're done, and probably like to an infinity and beyond done. Mm-hmm. And then the men come out and say, oh, well, it's because they're in a midlife crisis, or it's hormones, or it's every excuse in the book other than their own actions. Hate to break it to them. They should probably look in the fucking mirror first, but here's the truth. They won't. And then they make it their life's goal, because they got left, to punish that person for leaving them, including trying to burn them down to the ground with every confidential thing that you learn in a marriage with someone. And so you want to see someone's true character, see how they behave after a divorce towards their ex.
When you go back to the moment when you met him and when he basically entered your life, just so I can get an understanding of it, and just so anyone possibly listening can get an understanding of it, what were the things that you were attracted to about him? What were the things that drew you to him?
So you're gonna laugh because it's gonna make me a complete nerd. He was a trial attorney, and he was really good in the courtroom. And I can say a lot of things about him, and I will still say this: probably the best trial attorneys I know. Really a phenomenal trial attorney, and that to me was super sexy. And he was 6'2", and I thought handsome, and he was bald. I didn't care about that. And bald can be very sexy, but I mean, look at The Rock. I had to get that one in somewhere.
There's always time for thirst traps. Always.
There's always time for thirst traps. But bald can be sexy. But really, I mean, he was charming and charismatic, and it was the love bombing. It was, I fell for fucking every trick in the book. That looking back now, I would have recognized one of my friends' laughs because we talk about some of that stuff that happened in the beginning that should have been really, really like big red flags that I should have walked away from. That being said, one of my friends was like, you didn't just like blow through red flags. They're like, you blew through the do not enter flashing red light signs and just went right through them. And I was like, yeah. And then I added in with a here, hold my beer. I really did ignore them all. And I think because of how I grew up, it, I guess, seemed more normal of what a relationship should be and not because of my mom.
We've talked about this a lot, is the age disparity between you and your ex. You might want to talk about that because when you met him, you were a young newbie and he was an established, powerful figure in the workplace. So the reason I'm saying this is that kind of in my way set the course for you to be in some sort of a mentor-mentee situation throughout the course of your marriage.
I was 23 when I met my husband. He was 45. He was, I think, married at the time, going through a divorce or getting ready to go through a divorce. I think his story varies on that aspect. That being said, he is 22 years older than me. So right now I'm 48, he's 70. So imagine my surprise when he told me he was dating a 30-year-old.
Were you surprised based on everything you knew? And were you surprised that may not go the distance?
No, I wasn't surprised at all because she also happened to be his trial partner at the time. And I was just like, and one, felt sorry for her because she was going to fall victim to the same thing I did.
I have a motto, don't shit where you eat. I have a lot of mottos, but that's one of them is, and it's really done me very well within my circles, is that you need to have and establish a relationship outside of the workplace, because the problem is we use the relatability and the comfortability between the workplace, but it also causes a lot more problems. In your case, if you had both been the same age or around the same age and at the same career level, that would have been different because he would not have had the power, or at least the implied power over your career, because you did look up to him. Let's be fair. You did.
Oh, yeah.
You respected his power and his ability to dominate the professional workplace, which is one of the reasons you were attracted to him, to be fair.
Yep. Absolutely.
A major reason, actually. At the same point, probably leading into that were talks, were rumors, were things like, well, the fact that she's married to this powerful man probably gets her in this position and that position. And you and I both know that's not the case.
Nope.
However, that also is something that may be a tactic that's used against you, for you to doubt your entire career because of someone's ego or someone's inability to praise you for the expert level of things you do, for the capabilities and the skill set that you've obtained.
Yeah, I think he always viewed me as the young lawyer who didn't know anything, and he was always the seasoned litigator that knew everything. I mean, I think that's how he always viewed me. I think probably to some extent it's probably still how he views me. I don't know that, and because of the type of law that I practice, it doesn't command respect from him because family law lawyers aren't real trial attorneys. I mean, I can't tell you how often I heard that from him. But, to each their own. Doesn't bother me anymore because now I know that, am I going to say I'm the best? God, no. There's always someone better than you. Always. Everything in life. There's always someone prettier. There's always someone in better shape. There's always someone, but I'm okay with who I am now. And it's taken some time and space getting away from him to get some of that, I don't know, spark back that I used to have. Because I forgot what it was like to go out and just laugh. And I remember towards the end, he would always tell me, well, you need to smile. You have a beautiful smile and you don't smile anymore. And it's true. I lost my ability to smile around him.
Wow. Do you know how many women I've talked to, and knowing that they've gone through a situation like yours where they need to basically reclaim their souls out of a destructive and toxic relationship, and it doesn't happen overnight. I think part of the thing is that what you did is you started betting on yourself, and I think that's a very important thing.
I did.
You took the steps and you had the strength and the resolve and the ability to know that you're worth it. And I think that speaks to your character, but it also speaks to no one is going to stop you. Anybody who basically is resistant to your shine is going to get burned. That's really what I know about you at this point, up to this point, is that put on your sunglasses, otherwise wear your 50 SPV because shit's going to get hot.
Did you just say SPV? Is that another one we need to write down instead of SPF?
SPV. No, it's sunblock, but it also helps with venereal diseases to prevent them. So I'm combining.
Where's my goddamn list? SPV. It's on the list now, ladies and gentlemen. But I did. I really lost my ability to smile. I lost joy in life. I became a miserable bitch to be around.
Well, that hasn't changed much, but I will say this is that still applies. I don't give yourself too much credit.
One of the best things about what we do to some extent is we get to read people's text messages into the record and or have the witnesses read the text messages into the record. And everyone knows that not always are text messages PG, G, or even R. So we have oftentimes inappropriate text messages that are read. So I saw a meme, and I think I sent it to you. I sent it to our Love Lust Law. It wasn't the late night group chat. It was the other one. But it was that elderly attorney reading in some really inappropriate text messages. Did you watch that one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm like, that perfectly describes being a family law lawyer. Perfectly describes it, because the stuff that we say on the record, like, you wouldn't even say in front of your mother, let alone in an open courtroom. Remember, when you put in writings, Exhibit A. Everyone forgets that. And then when divorces turn south, you'll have one spouse that has spent years collecting evidence, years collecting it, almost as if they were trying to blackmail you the entirety of your 22 years together married. Because when it ended, you bring back from the dead all of these messages for years when you were prying through her cell phone and prying through her iPad and finding information, taking it completely out of context, and then trying to use it to ruin her, completely omitting, your contribution to what fucking happened in the relationship or how much you contributed to the other things that happened. Okay, now I'm going to talk. I don't talk about my divorce much for lots of reasons. And I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details because I've got children with this person, and I don't want some of the stuff out there for them, for their sakes, because they don't need to know or hear my side of what happened, because it's a drastically different version than the one he has been spinning. And I have gotten in the last month some of the ugliest messages I have ever received in my life from a person that I was married to for 22 years. And I mean ugly. And Jake, I've shared some of them with you because it's like, we're friends. Like, yes, we do this. Yes, we like to laugh and we have a lot of fun doing what we do, but it turns out we ended up being friends, which is what I love about this so much. And so you've seen some of the stuff that he has sent me in either email or text message. And I still can't believe that someone that I spent 24 years with, that I dedicated from 23 on raising his 2 girls, then having our own boys, and all the things I did for him to say those things in writing that he said to me. And I'm going to tell you this, I do this for a living. And I haven't seen messages in any of my cases that are as bad as the ones I've received. And I've seen some bad ones in my cases. One of my personal favorites was one that says, I hope you crawl back into the spider hole from which you came and shrivel up and die. And that one wasn't me, but it was artfully ugly. But I've seen some other uglier ones. And those that have come into the record in front of a jury trial. Just some really horrific messages. And none of those compare to what I've received in the last 2 months. None of them. None of them.
They have put me in a position to really understand the true depth of what you have experienced throughout the course of your marriage. And these are things that nobody wants these to see the light of day. I find it absolutely revolting and disgusting. And I'm sorry that you have had to experience this, but know there are so many people that are in your corner, and know there are so many people that will support you through a lot of these things. And I think a lot of times people try to weaponize the past in a way thinking that it's going to bring some sort of shock value or devalue you the same way they've devalued you throughout the course of the relationship at times. But I see it as a moment of empowerment, because the transparency that you're living and the life that you're living now to create a beautiful, wonderful ability to connect with other people and share your own truth is the same thing that someone thinks they're going to weaponize against you. But in my reality and most people's reality, it's actually going to empower you.
Well, thank you. It's been challenging. And when I talk about divorces and dealing with individuals that have personality disorders and deal with difficult breakups and difficult relationships, like I really talk from a place of not just experience because of what I've done for a living. It's personal experience. A lot of my advice comes from what I've had to learn to manage. And it's made me better at what I do. It's also been miserable. It's probably why I got up to 300 pounds, because I definitely was an emotional eater. And the only way to deal with the constant walking on eggshells was food, probably alcohol too, if we want to be honest about it. And I will, I'll fall on my sword. I'll own my shit. To say that I was perfect in the marriage, to say that I don't have some blame for what happened, I do. Everyone, again, I will own it. I'm not a perfect person. No one is. Everyone's made mistakes. But the characterization which he is now applying to what has happened is, quite frankly, a fiction in his own mind. Like, it is just not based. But maybe 1 or 2 facts are true, but the remainder of it and his culpability and a whole lot of it is completely omitted. And it's been miserable. And I've had to maintain work and trials and being a mom and doing the podcasting and doing the other thing that I do. And it's just, I don't understand how someone can be so vile. I mean, so vile. It just baffles me. And what I do know is that no one's been able to hold me down. No one's been able to ever stop me. And he's not going to either. And I just wish he would stop. But y'all, when you're dealing with someone like this, until they find a new target, you're stuck. And it's miserable. It's miserable to be their target. And so I keep praying that he goes back to the 30-year-old girlfriend that he had for a while, because then he'll go focus on her and then leave me alone. But if she doesn't come back, then maybe he can go find someone else at the gym. I don't know. He needs to go find a new fix and a new target. I'm tired. And at the end of it, he paints me as the bad person with the girls that I help raise. And I mean, just flat out mistruths that he's told them. And I'm just, I mean, literally what happened yesterday was we met for dinner, which was my mistake. Shouldn't have done it. Met for dinner I had my little one with me. And so we met, Dad out for dinner. And Dad basically said, well, let's get back together. And I'm like, no, things have not changed. It's not going to get any better. And I told him, I said, the things you've said to me over the last 2 months, I'm like, how do I get past that? His response, not kidding you, was basically, well, it was just, words said in war. They don't matter. I should just get over it. And you've read these words, Jake. You've read them. They're not ones you can just get over.
There is the consideration of the point of no return. And I think that some of the things were so violent, so especially ugly and pointed, that I don't know what an enemy looks like, but these are things you send to an enemy.
I think you treat enemies nicer.
I didn't want to say that, but I did want to inject that I would have to be hard pressed to find somebody that I would even remotely send something like that to. I'm sure I could dig up a few people that deserve that, maybe ones I've never even met. But I can tell you is that it is pushing the boundaries of not only what is acceptable, but also it's almost like words that will try to demolish your soul.
Oh, no, they were, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Yeah. And it's death by 1,000 words, because it's just, they are pointed, mean, vicious, ugly, devaluing attacks that are done nothing than to make a person want to drive off a cliff.
Well, and to your point, I think the complications here are not really understanding how these words and these messages and these things are impacting not only you, but the people around you. And I think you have your own arsenal of people that want to protect you and want to help you and really aren't going to judge you for anything's in the past that someone may deem as not fitting with your current character. But I think you living in your truth is your mission. And I think that's the one misconception, is kind of understanding that there's only so far someone can hold things over you. Once you own them, they hold no power anymore.
And that really is the kind of the transformation that I've been through since I moved out. And for anyone to think that I moved out lightly and left my home that had been my home for the last 10 years and just moved out because I want to, I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
The environment had become so toxic for me, so toxic for the boys to be around. My body was literally falling apart because of the toxicity. I think I moved out in early March after we had just an ugly fight where I don't know that I've ever seen such anger and hatred in someone's eyes as what I saw in his eyes that day. Yeah. And I remember one of the boys coming in and saying, hey, if y'all don't stop, we're going to call the police. And not because it was physical, because we were just yelling. And I kept asking him to stop, to leave me alone. And he wouldn't. He just kept at it because I don't know what his ultimate goal was, but he just wouldn't stop. And after my son came up to us and said that, I stopped. And I realized that he was never going to leave. He was never going to stop. And I didn't have a choice. And so I moved out on a Sunday, spent 2 weeks on a good friend's couch, went on vacation for spring break, and came back to my first knee replacement. And then I was in an Airbnb for 3 weeks with my knee replacement until I could get my apartment ready. And so it wasn't a plan to move out, but I didn't have a choice any longer. I don't know, and Jake, you and I have talked about this offline. I don't know, sitting here today, I would still be alive if I was still in that marriage. I don't know that I would. For a multitude of reasons, I just don't know that I would. I didn't have a choice. I had to get out. And so when I got out, it was, I mean, I know who he is and I knew what he was capable of. I was, I guess, hopeful that that wouldn't be the case. But as one of my friends tells me, hope's not a tactic. And for a while, I tried the dance to manage. What I really do say is I tried to manage it. I tried to manage him, manage the anger like I did while we were married. And it became just not workable at all, because no matter what, the anger was always going to return. I think the longest he ever went without being angry was probably 2 or 3 days. And so I didn't have a choice but leave. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Anyone that looks up my divorce history, I think I filed for divorce 6 or 7 times. And I think the 7th time was the time that I actually went through with it. And so I think that's interesting because I always say it takes 7 times of attempted leavings to leave an abusive relationship. And I'm not saying physical, y'all. I'm not. But it took me, I think, to the time I filed for divorce, the 7th time before I went through with it. And it is not what I wanted. It's not, you don't go into marriage, and I didn't go into my marriage thinking, oh, I'm going to divorce him in 22 years. You get married and it's supposed to be for life. That's what I wanted it to be. I was really in love with him, and I wanted to raise his girls or help him raise his girls. And I did all of that. And then I look back now and realize I was a nanny. I was a secretary. And a maid. There was no respect. It took him 20 years to tell me I was a good trial attorney. 20 years. And I've been a good trial attorney for a long time. But took me 20 years for him to tell me that. When I was married, I'd probably been married for, I don't know, maybe 10 years at this point. And I had taken my ex to go have breakfast with 2 of my stepsisters and my stepmother at the time. And he'd always heard these stories about my dad when it was like growing up in that house. And he never believed it, right? He just didn't believe my stories because my dad was a surgeon, successful doctor. And so you think, yeah, great life. Until you start hearing the horror stories of what I grew up in. And he didn't believe it until we had that breakfast with my stepmother and 2 of my stepsisters. And we all started telling these stories. And it was like a horror show, listening to the stories. He's like, holy crap. He's like, you weren't kidding. I'm like, I told you. I'm like, you can't make up fiction like the stories we have. Cannot make it up.
Jesus.
Cannot make it up. My mom set great examples. Her and my stepdad's marriage is one that most people will be lucky to have. So I had really good examples from my mom, but on my dad's side, it was nothing but chaos. I mean, nothing but chaos. We had a keg, and not like a pony keg. We had a full-blown kegerator at my dad's house with Coors on draft. And if anyone remembers Stop and Goes from way back when, they had their 44-ounce mugs. And my dad had a 44-ounce mug that he carried around with him at all times that was filled with beer. From, he'd have his V8 juice first thing in the morning, cup of coffee, and then on weekends by 11 or 12, he'd switch to beer. And so he had a signal, because he used to call me Mitchell, and he would shake his Route 44. And I was 6 years old, 7 years old. And that was my sign from him to go refill his Route 44 with thermos with Coors. And then we got in trouble when I was a kid because if we had too much head on the beer, we got in trouble. So I learned from like age 6 or 7 how to really pour draft beer. But it was a constant. Like I remember going to pick up the kegs on weekends because he would go through probably a keg a week, if I remember correctly. And with the alcohol, there were guns. And our front room was a reloading room. Like I could reload shotgun shells and reload the tips on bullets for rifle shooting from a very young age. I think there's enough gunpowder in our front living room to blow up the neighborhood. My childhood was not what you would expect. He had over 200 birds in his house. And when I say 200 birds, y'all, I mean, if anyone knows birds, moluccans, cockatoos, African grays, scarlets, blue and golds, green wings. We had every kind of bird possible. And the only one we didn't have, which is one I really wanted, was a hyacinth. But now, if you ask me about birds, I want to go down to the Amazon and go on a hunting trip and shoot a bunch of them.
I have not moved past 200. So please explain to me 200 birds.
Yeah, and I am not exaggerating by any stretch of the imagination the amount of birds. And so my dad had some kind of OCD, and I probably think some anxiety, depression. I think he was undiagnosed for multiple things. And because he was a surgeon, he had money to really have OCD. That being said, he always bought things in pairs. So he would have extras. This applied to motorcycles. This applied to cars. This applied to animals as well, including birds. And he, when we were in the 80s, got into he wanted to breed birds. And so there wasn't, and this was at my stepmother's house, there wasn't a single part of our house that I would go over and visit to that did not have a bird cage or birds in it. That includes bathrooms. There wasn't a single room except for the 3 kids' bedrooms. My 3 stepsisters lived there, and they had 3 kids' bedrooms. And my brother and I would come over and we'd share. But in their respective bedrooms, they each had a dog, and those dogs lived in those bedrooms. Now that didn't include the additional dogs that my dad had in the backyard. And so then you throw in a Manx cat every now and again in there, and it was quite the menagerie. But the living room had birds. They enclosed the patio outside, had bird cages. The garage was wall-to-wall birds. The bedrooms, his bedroom had the dining room. I mean, every single room had birds and bird cages. And when I say bird smell, my mother, when we would come home from weekends at my dad's house, would make us strip down to our underwear in the garage before we even walked in the house because we smelled so bad, and we'd have to go immediately shower. It took 5 of us kids 5 hours on a Saturday and Sunday to feed all the birds. We had to make the bird food every Friday or every Saturday and Sunday. And when I say make the bird food, it was with a commercial size pressure cooker. So from like age 8 on, I knew how to use this like giant pressure cooker to cook the rice, corn, beans, and something else for the birds we had to make every weekend. And then you'd mix in, once the pressure cooker was done, we'd add in the bird seed, the tetracycline, the vitamins, whatever else we had to put in the food for the birds. But it took 5 kids 5 hours to do it on Saturdays and Sundays, and those were our chores. And if for any reason we forgot to feed any one of the animals or any one of the birds, they would make us go an entire day without food or water so we would know how the animals felt. The horror stories that I have, I mean, that just scratches the surface.
I don't even know what word to use other than devastated by this reveal, because...
Yeah, I've never told you this story, have I?
No, I can only imagine psychologically what you had gone through, because the noise of the birds.
And they are up from sunrise to sundown. That was the place where I went to go visit, and I got to go home from. So for me, it affected me to some extent, but you and I have talked about it before. I wouldn't change what I've been through at all because I wouldn't be where I am today for it. And so so for me, it's, you can't say you're glad you went through it, but I wouldn't change it. And it has given me a different perspective than I think most people have. I mean, people, when they find out, and this happened when I became a judge in El Paso, I had another judge pull me into his chambers and basically tell me I didn't deserve to be an associate court judge because I grew up privileged because my dad was a doctor. And what I told him was, for you to have that belief tells me you know nothing about how I grew up. Nothing about how I grew up. I don't even know that people could handle full confessional, like people put on your 5-point harness.
Oh, my Lord.
Because we're going for a ride.
I love you add not only activities, but there seems to be like a preparatory kit, a survival kit to listen to your life story.
That would be about accurate for anyone that wants to be a part of my life. It's like, if you want to join my monkeys and my circus, let's go, because it's something. It's
not break glass in case of emergency. It's make sure you wear shoes because you'll be walking on broken glass. Is that correct?
It's going to be bring your waders because you're going to be walking through some shit.
Jesus Christ. It's like the crossroads of humility and hubris. That's really what you are.
You're such a dick.
I mean, what kind of family law attorney has their own name on a fucking water bottle? Jesus, you know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of
a fucking good one? Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Love, Lust, Raw. It's been completely unfiltered, despite Jake's best attempts. There's been no script. It's just me running my mouth, which apparently sometimes I'm not too bad at. I'll be back with new episodes. Love, Lust, Raw is hosted by me, Michele Locke. Jake Deptula is the executive producer. Normally, we have great sound mixing by Jared Landis because he's our sound editor and mixer. And normally, we have great scripts and research because of Haley Gray, who's our producer, writer, and researcher. But unfortunately fortunately for them, I winged this one and don't hold any of those ones accountable for what we produced on Love, Lust, Raw. But it was really a chance for me to be me. Take it or leave it, love me or hate me. I hope you learn. I hope you laughed, and I hope you enjoyed. Want to reach out? Want to find out more about what's going on with me? You can follow me on Instagram at Attorney Michele Locke. You can also email me at hello@michelelocke.com. Just remember, Michelle is spelled with one L, and you can thank my mother, Margot, for that. You want me to do it again?
Let's do the whole episode over. Is that cool? We just start from the top?
Sure. Awesome. I got nothing but time today.